September 1938. German Chancellor Adolf Hitler threatens to unleash a European war unless the Sudetenland, a border area of Czechoslovakia on which the ethnic German population lives, is ceded to Germany. The leaders of Britain, France, Italy and Germany hold a conference in Munich between the 29th and 30th of September 1938 and agree to the German annexation of the Sudetenland in exchange for a pledge of peace from Hitler. To this conference, which is also known as the Munich Betrayal, the Czechoslovaks are not even invited. On the 1st of October 1938, Adolf Hitler annexes the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia, giving Germany control of the extensive Czechoslovak border fortifications in this area. Many Sudeten Germans welcome the Nazis with swastika banners, flags and flowers thrown onto the road. One of them, who as an SS officer will later commit unspeakable atrocities in Nazi concentration camps, is Roland Puhr. Roland Puhr was born on the 21st of January 1914 in the village of Staré Křečany, then part of Austria-Hungary. When Adolf Hitler came into power on the 30th of January 1933, Puhr was 19 years old. After the Nazi seizure of power, the Nazi regime began not only to restrict the civil and human rights of the Jews, establishing the first concentration camps, but it also demanded the return of the ethnic German population of Czechoslovakia and the land on which it lived, the Sudetenland, to the German Reich. A major pro-Nazi force in Czechoslovakia was the Sudeten German Party, with the explicit official aim of breaking the country up and joining it to the Third Reich. By June 1938, the party had over 1.3 million members, which accounted for 40.6% of ethnic German citizens of Czechoslovakia. One of them was Roland Puhr, who joined the Sudeten German Party in 1936. When over 3 days between the 11th and 13th of March 1938, Adolf Hitler annexed the Federal State of Austria into the German Reich, the failure of the British and French to take action against him for violating the Versailles Treaty emboldened him toward further aggression. His next objective was to annex the Sudetenland. The Czechoslovak army was modern, had an excellent system of frontier fortifications, and was prepared to fight. The Soviet Union announced its willingness to come to Czechoslovakia's assistance. Czech President Edvard Beneš, however, refused to go to war without the support of the Western powers. On the 29th of September, the Munich Agreement was signed by Germany, Italy, France and Britain. The Czechoslovak government capitulated on the 30th of September, despite the army's opposition, and agreed to abide by the agreement, which stipulated that Czechoslovakia must cede the Sudetenland to Germany. The German occupation of the Sudetenland would be completed by the 10th of October 1938. The same year, after having deserted from the Czechoslovakian military, Roland Puhr joined the Wehrmacht, the German armed forces. The Second World War started on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. The same year, Puhr joined the Nazi Party and was then assigned to the SS-Totenkopfverbände, or Death's Head units at Sachsenhausen concentration camp. The Death's Head units were an independent unit within the SS, responsible for administering the Nazi concentration and extermination camps throughout Germany and later in occupied Europe. At Sachsenhausen, prisoners were subjected to horrible working conditions, and whoever had no strength left and stopped working was immediately kicked and beaten by the SS guards. Heinkel, the aircraft manufacturer, was a major user of Sachsenhausen labor, using between 6,000 and 8,000 prisoners on the HE-177 bomber. Although official German reports claimed that the prisoners were working without fault, some of these aircraft crashed unexpectedly around Stalingrad, and it is suspected that the prisoners had sabotaged them. Prisoners also worked in a brick factory, with a large task force of prisoners from the camps sent to work in the nearby brickworks to meet Albert Speer's vision of rebuilding Berlin. In the early stage of the camp's existence, the SS and police incarcerated mainly political opponents and real or perceived criminal offenders in Sachsenhausen. Between 1936 and 1945, however, Sachsenhausen also held Jews, gay men, Jehovah's Witnesses, Roma and Sinti people, and later Soviet civilians. The first group of Soviet prisoners of war arrived in Sachsenhausen at the end of August 1941. By the end of October 1941, the SS had deported about 12,000 Soviet prisoners of war to Sachsenhausen, and thousands of them were shot by camp authorities shortly after they arrived in the camp. Estimates of Soviet prisoners of war killed at Sachsenhausen ranged from 11 to 18,000. During his time at Sachsenhausen, Puhr participated in the shootings of multiple Soviet prisoners of war at the camp's execution site. Puhr, who reached the rank of SS Unterscharführer, which was equivalent to sergeant, eventually became the deputy commandant of Sachsenhausen and personally murdered approximately 30 to 40 prisoners. One crime he participated in was the death by beating of Austrian prosecutor Karl Tuppy, who had initiated the case against two SS men for the murder of Austrian Chancellor Engelbert Dollfuss in 1934. Both men were found guilty of killing Dollfuss and executed. Tuppy had also been involved in the prosecutions of Anton Rinteln, one of the ringleaders in the coup, and Otto Steinhausel, a police officer who'd collaborated. These two received prison terms for treason, albeit they were later released under amnesty agreements with Germany. German communist Rudolf Wunderlich, a survivor of Sachsenhausen, later described finding Tuppy after he was beaten by Puhr and other SS men. "I had never seen anything like it. His face was gone, just a piece of completely undefined meat, full of blood, cuts, the eyes completely swollen up." Tuppy died shortly after being beaten further by SS guards Gustav Sorge and Wilhelm Schubert. Puhr was also suspected of additional targeted killings at an SS construction brigade near Dusseldorf. SS construction brigades were a type of subcamp of Nazi concentration camps that was first established in autumn 1942. These units were usually made up of male non-Jewish prisoners, most of whom were Poles or Soviets. Chances of survival were higher in these mobile units than the main camps they were attached to. They were deployed to construct emergency shelters and clear rubble in the aftermath of bombings. They also had to recover dead bodies from the rubble and recover unexploded bombs. Thanks to the deployment of the SS construction brigades to the major cities within the German Reich, the German public became aware of the living conditions in the concentration camps. Although at every opportunity the SS men referred to the deployed prisoners as bandits and murderers, who must be watched to prevent their escaping, the population, however, seeing their generally young age, did not really believe this. With the help of civilians, many German prisoners managed to make contact with their families. When Puhr learned the two prisoners made such contact, he personally shot them. Kurt Wittwer, who was a commander of the labor detachments, described Puhr as a totally brutal and scheming person. Heavy labor, hunger, and violence were the main causes of the 111 deaths registered in the first 5 months of the existence of the SS construction brigade near Dusseldorf. Embezzlement resulted in minimal food rations. Alphonse Kupka, a former prisoner, said the following: "The food was extraordinarily poor. Roland Puhr, with the help of the cook, expropriated food so that the physical constitution of the whole detachment was very poor. The sick and enfeebled prisoners received no medical care, and despite their condition, they had to go to work. In the evenings, the weakest were mistreated, and were often forced during the winter of 1942 to 1943 to spend the nights outdoors." Puhr oversaw all these atrocities and actively participated in them. After Roland Puhr left Sachsenhausen, he was deployed in Lager Sylt camp in the Channel Islands, where he became the first commandant. Jewish forced laborers there were employed in building fortifications including bunkers, gun emplacements, air raid shelters and tunnels. The Second World War in Europe officially ended on the 8th of May, 1945. After the war, Puhr went into hiding using forged papers. He started a new life in Sachsenhausen in East Germany, but he did not escape his dark past. In June 1963, Puhr was exposed and arrested by East German authorities. He was charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity, and on the 16th of December 1963, a court in Neubrandenburg found Puhr guilty of the following: participation in the shooting of Soviet prisoners of war in the camp's execution barracks, the single-handed shooting of 30 to 40 prisoners of war, and the mishandling of prisoners, among them the Austrian prosecutor Karl Tuppy. For his crimes, the court sentenced Roland Puhr to death. His appeal was rejected, and the chairman of the State Council, Walter Ulbricht, rejected his petition for clemency. When Puhr was guillotined at Leipzig prison on the 15th of April 1964, he was 50 years old. His remains were then cremated, and he was buried in an unmarked grave in an undisclosed location. There were no tears shed for Roland Puhr. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.